Jake, go ahead and turn down. Okay. And tonight, the reason I picked that song, this particular edition of it, is we're going to start looking at Joseph. And as we've been doing the foundations of the faith, you know, God has shown us the need of forgiveness. He's shown us why we need to be forgiven, honey. I guess that would help. He's shown us the need of forgiveness, that we cannot earn forgiveness, but then he's going to give us another example through the life of Joseph. And as he does, we want to see that the way forgiveness comes about is not because of something we do. Forgiveness, true forgiveness from God, is not based on our actions, but on what Christ Jesus did. When other people need forgiveness, we don't forgive them based on what they've done. We forgive them based on what Jesus did. And so it's just teaching us how to forgive properly and helping us understand what God has forgiven us of. Joseph is an interesting character. You look through the Bible, you look at David, a man after God's own heart. But as you read the story of David, you come across this young lady by the name of Bathsheba. Bathsheba was a cute little filly. David got a glimpse of her and said, "Ooh-wee, I want that." Sent for her, committed adultery with her, then tried to make it look like it was her husband who got her pregnant instead of David. Her husband would not cooperate, so he sent Uriah, Bathsheba's husband, to the front to be killed. But God still said he was a man after God's own heart, and that's because of forgiveness. You look at Abraham, who was the man of faith, and God says, "You're going to have a child. You're going to have a son." Abraham got tired of waiting and said, "Well, God, you may not really do what you said, so I'm going to go into Hagar and have a child with her." You look through the Bible and you look at the characters and you see they're human. They sinned. But you know what? Joseph is probably the only Bible character that God does not point out a particular sin of. It's because God is using him to illustrate that perfect sacrificial lamb that Christ is going to be. And so it's an illustration. Somebody look at Genesis 29. We're going to spend most of our time in this area, so you're going to go ahead and flip there. But somebody read Genesis 29:18.
Then Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, "I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter."
Talk about love. He says, "I'm going to work 7 years to get this filly. I'm going to work for you for 7 years if you let me marry your daughter." And in the scriptures it says, he did that, and it seemed unto him as if it were just a day. This guy was madly in love with Rachel. And he was going to marry Rachel. 7 years flies by, and Jacob goes to Laban and says, "I've worked 7 years. It's time for us to have a marriage feast. I want to marry your daughter." Laban says, "Sure, no problem. I'll set it all up." Somebody read Genesis 29:21 through 25.
Finally the time came for him to marry her. "I have fulfilled my contract," Jacob said to Laban. "Now give me my wife so we can be married." Through
25.
So Laban invited everyone in the neighborhood to celebrate with Jacob at a wedding feast. That night when it was dark, Laban took Leah to Jacob and he slept with her. And Laban gave Leah a servant, Zilpah, I don't know, to be her maid.
And never worry about the pronunciation of biblical names. As I have to remind people, they're dead. They don't mind what you call them.
They can call a lot of different names.
You can call him Fred if you want to. But you know, here he had worked for Rachel, and Laban sneakily waits till it gets dark and says, "Okay, it's time to get your wife." And brought him Leah. He had sex with her, thus consummating the marriage. And he didn't realize till the next morning when he woke up and looked at his love, whoa, what are you doing in bed with me? You're not who I was supposed to marry. And so he goes to Laban and he says, Laban, what is this that you've done? I'm supposed to be marrying Rachel. Laban says, well, there's a little problem. In our culture, the first daughter has to get married first. So tough turkey. Jacob says, but I love Rachel. I really want to marry her. Laban says, 7 more years and you can have her. So how many years did Jacob actually work to get Rachel?
14.
14 years.
Well, what do you do about the first wife?
Oh, he kept him. And that's where the story is going to get interesting.
In those days, that was normal.
Yeah, multiple wives in that culture was not unusual at all. So, you sit there, now he's got Leah. And do you know why he didn't like Leah?
She wasn't beautiful.
Why was she not beautiful?
Her eyes.
What was wrong with her eyes?
Was it a
Baby
different
eyes.
color?
They were blue.
Yeah, different.
Oh yeah, that was not.
I thought they said-
That wasn't acceptable.
Yeah, that wasn't a good thing.
I thought
Man,
it
I'm
was
sitting
a
here.
lazy eye.
If you look at the culture in America today, the perfect female is black-headed with blue eyes. But back then, that was an indicator that ooh, somebody has been outside our culture. So, okay, because pure Jews, pure Arabian Peninsula people have nothing but black eyes. So somebody had been somewhere else at some point. And so, whoa, we don't want you. But he wanted Rachel. Somebody read Genesis 29:31.
Sorry, I couldn't find my Bible.
When the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb, and Rachel was barren.
Missy, I'll take your excuse away. You may use mine.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
Yeah, God saw that Jacob made a difference in his wives. Now, in that culture, it was okay to take more than one wife as long as you treat them all equally. Jacob loved Rachel, but really didn't care for Leah because one, she wasn't pretty, and two, he was straight into marrying her. So he made a difference in her. And he says, oh, honey bun, I love you, Rachel. Okay, Leah, yeah, you're my wife too. And God says, you're not doing it right. Now, in that culture, to be barren was considered a curse from God. Every lady had to have children. That's what they were good for. Our culture no longer believes this, but I have heard it said that a lady's place is in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant. That is not true. But that's almost what that culture was, women were nothing but to have children and take care of the home. And so he says, yeah, I will not let Rachel have children. That gets a contest going. What's the contest? How can I have children? Because Leah says, Rachel can't have children. If I have children, maybe Jacob will love me.
It's sad.
It is sad. But believe me, I deal with marriages constantly where sex is used as a weapon. It's basically the same principle, yeah? Yeah, so she has children. And Rachel keeps trying to have a baby. And God won't let her. And so Rachel says, I know our culture allows this, just like with Abraham and Hagar. You can have my handmaid. And so she got pregnant. Well, Leah says, now hold on. She's going to catch up with me. Tell you what, Jacob, you can have my handmaiden. So now he's got basically 4 wives going on here, having children with everyone except Rachel. Now, can you imagine living in that culture where having a child was so paramount to being considered righteous and being considered a good wife, and the 2 concubines and your other sister wife as having children and you can't? Can you imagine the shame she was feeling? Can you imagine, because of that shame, the pressure she was putting on Jacob? Jacob, make me pregnant! It wasn't Jacob that wasn't doing his part. God says, no. You got to treat them equally. Have you ever noticed how in churches we tend to treat people unequally? If you get divorced in the average church, you're a second-class citizen if you're that good. All of a sudden you become contagious. There's actually a church in this town that if you're divorced, you cannot join. They'll let you visit, but you're not allowed to join if you've been divorced. Show me where that's in the Bible. It's not there. But we make distinctions. Well, you're educated, you're not educated, you got money, you don't have money, you get... And just because I grew up in the deep south during the 60s, the color of the skin. Well, do any of you know Tony Evans? Know who Tony Evans is?
I do.
Tony and I used to go to church together. Great man of God. He decided to join the church. There was no problem up to this point. When he decided to join the church, he went before the membership committee, gave his testimony. They came out and said, we believe he's a genuine Christian. We have no problem with that. We do not think he's a troublemaker. We don't think he's trying to stir anything up. But there's churches for his type, and he needs to go there. The same kind of discrimination that was going on there, same kind of treating people unequally, same thing that I am convinced God gets upset about. At that point, the church was running over 1,000 people, and it finally merged with another church because it had gotten down below 100 people. Yeah, you can't do that. God's not going to let you grow if you are being discriminatory. But somebody read Genesis, let's go to Genesis 30. Get things a little bit happier here. Genesis 30, verses 22 to 24.
Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach.
Notice she was feeling really down. Finally she gets pregnant. She has a son. And the good thing is it was a son. In the culture, because there had been a promise of the Messiah, every Jewish lady especially prayed that the one that opened the womb would be a son and the Messiah. They were wanting the Messiah to come. So first one was a son. That's possibly the Messiah. So he's taken away my reproach. God's given me a son. But there were 10 brothers before this. God's given me a son. And what is she going to call him? Joseph. Jacob had gotten old. Had given up hope that Rachel would have a kid. Rachel was just in so much despair. It ain't going to happen. But God is the God of the impossible. And God says, okay, it's time for you to have a son. Now, if you had a child that you've been dreaming for, wanting, desiring, longing for, how are you going to treat that child?
The special child, the spoiled child.
The spoiled child, the special child, the one you're going to do everything you can to protect, the one you kind of show favoritism to. And did Jacob ever show favoritism? Somebody read Genesis 37, verse 3.
Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So one day Jacob had a special gift made for Joseph, a beautiful robe, or as we know it, coat of many colors.
If you're reading the King James, definitely. Or if you're watching the wonderful Technicolor, what was the name of that play that was on Broadway back in the 70s? Oh well, Joseph's Technicolor Rainbow, something like that. Yeah, but yeah, you sit there. Jacob's making a difference. He says, this is the son of my old age. I'm going to take care of him. I'm going to favor him. I'm going to put him above all the other sons. And what do you think that did to the other sons?
Jealousy sprung forward.
Ooh, it raised up its ugly head, and it said, we got to do something about this boy. And to make matters worse, he made him a special coat. And the King James says coat of many colors, and that's what a lot of people think about. If you ever heard Dolly Parton sing her coat of many colors, it was based on that. Not that Dolly Parton was any great theologian, but it was based on that loosely. And it doesn't say coat of many colors. What it is talking about is a long-sleeved tunic made with the finest material. It was what the wealthy wore. It was what the dignitaries would wear. So it was saying, hey, you're special. You're not going to have to do anything. As we'll notice in a minute, all the other boys had to go out and do the chores and take care of the sheep and all this kind of stuff. And Joseph got to stay home. Daddy's taking care of me. I know a lot of people who have a sibling that is favored, gets everything they want, and you sit there, I got to work for things. Why did they get all that? But this coat showed his nobility and importance. God has a sense of humor. This isn't enough. I mean, you would think that being doted upon, being given this special coat, being allowed not to labor like the rest of the brothers would be enough. But God says, we're going to add to the mix. Now, here's the problem. Too often we see God adding trouble, and we think, oh, that's mean of God. Why do you do that? But God says it's to get you where I want you. I know the plan. I know the beginning. I know the end. I know everything in between. I know where I want you. I know how to get you there. And so God wasn't adding trouble. He was stirring the pot, but he was stirring the pot for a good reason. So God gives Joseph a couple of dreams. And in both the dreams, Joseph is elevated above his brothers, above his father, and they're going to bow down to him. Isn't it great when little brother is going to say, hey, I'm going to take over, guys. You're going to bow down to me. Can you imagine how jealous they're getting now? They can chew up nails and spit out tacks. I mean, they're really upset. The brothers made fun of him. But it says Jacob in Genesis 37, verse 11. It says Jacob put some stock in that dream and kept his eyes open to see how God would fulfill it. Jacob says, okay, if this dream's really from God, it's going to happen. Now, Jacob wasn't really upset because he was favoring Joseph anyhow. So, hey, yeah, you see, not only do I think you're special, God does too. But the boys, they were not happy campers. Somebody read Genesis 37, 13 to 14.
And Israel said to Joseph, are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them. So he said to them, here I am. Then he said to him, please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring back word to me. So he sent him out in the valley of Hebron, and he went to Shechem.
All of a sudden, Dad is pitting brother against brothers. Okay, son, you can stay here. You don't have to go out and tend the flocks. You can live the life of ease. Hey, son, I need you to do me a favor. Go spy on your brothers. I want you to see if they're doing what they're supposed to do. I want you to be able to bring me back a report and tell me if they're misbehaving. If they're not doing what they should be doing. Wasn't there enough jealousy already? How many of you have siblings or had siblings? Any of your siblings a tattletale? Yeah. Yeah. Mama, he did. Daddy, she did. Well, they were already upset because he'd done all this stuff. And now Jacob saying, hey, I want you to be a tattletale. Go bring me back a report on these guys. And Joseph, to please his father, was more than happy to do that. He'd already done that before, according to the scriptures. Now things get bad. Somebody read Genesis 37:18.
Now when they saw him afar off, even before he came near them, they conspired against him to kill him.
Talk about jealousy.
It's at a boiling point.
Yeah, they had reached that point, and they saw him coming, and they says, I know what we'll do with this guy. We'll kill him. Weren't they sweet brothers?
Loving family.
Loving family, very close-knit family. They took care of each other, even the dirty work, I guess. So, they're sitting here, they're ready to kill their brother. But what good is that going to do? Genesis 37:22. Somebody read that, please.
35:22,
37:22.
37.
Mm-hmm. 35 is the next paragraph.
Oh, okay. I see now. Sorry about that. 37:22. My eyes are so watery. Okay. Why should we shed his blood? Let's just throw him alive into this pit here. That way he will die without our having to touch him. Reuben was secretly planning to help Joseph escape, and then he would bring him back to his father.
And the plot thickens. We'll just kill him and get rid of him because we're sick and tired of him. And Reuben says, well, we're not murderers. That's not what we do. Let's not kill him. Let's throw him into this pit. Let's see, you throw somebody into a pit they can't get out of. There's no water, no food. You leave them there. They're going to die. But we wouldn't have committed murder. We didn't kill him. He just died. We don't know what happened.
We just kind of gave him a little shove.
Yeah, we just helped him out a little bit. But Reuben was planning on rescuing Joseph. Now, why do you think Reuben wanted to rescue Joseph? Do you not think he was upset about Joseph?
He had to be, but maybe his heart, he didn't want that guilt on him. I don't know.
It would be nice if that were the case.
For a personal, I mean, you wrote one reason here, and of course I was viewed as, look, Dad, I saved your favorite son. You owe me now.
Yeah, but there was a reason for
Yeah,
that.
and I saw where you wrote
Yeah.
that.
Somebody read chapter 35, verse 22. Mm-hmm.
While he was there, Reuben slept with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and someone told Jacob about it.
Reuben had gotten in bad graces with Dad really big time because he went in and slept with his concubine.
Oh.
In that culture, that was a sign of, I'm taking your place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking over. And so Jacob said, you're my son. You can't get away with this. So he thought, hey, if I rescue your favorite son, restore him to you after the rest of my brothers tell you he's dead, you're going to like me again. Talk about devious behavior. Talk about how sin takes us deeper than we plan on going. But then Reuben had to go somewhere. I really wished that God had told us where Reuben went. You know, what happened? Did he have a date? Did he have a business meeting? I mean, it just says while Reuben was gone, the brothers see a caravan. Not a Dodge caravan. A Camel caravan.
Never heard that brand.
Camel.
Yeah. I thought it was
Used to be a cigarette company and they got together and made.
It's not good cars because they couldn't sell cigarettes.
That's right. But it still smokes. So, you know, they see this caravan. And some people get confused when they're reading the scriptures. Because at one place it says they're Ishmaelites, and then it says they're Midianites, and even in the same verse it uses both terms. So what were they?
Heights.
They were ites. Ishmaelites are descendants of Ishmael, who are most of the people who populate the peninsula of Saudi Arabia. Midian was a particular region on the peninsula. So the Ishmaelites that were from the region of Media would be called Midianites or Ishmaelites. Interchangeable, so there's no contradiction there whatsoever. It's just both. Just like the verse you read a while ago, you said Israel. Well, Jacob's name was also Israel. So sometimes in Scripture you'll see it as Israel, and sometimes you'll see it as Jacob. So, nobody's confused. It's just, people call people differently. My mom would call me Danny, unless I was really in trouble, and then she would use my middle name. If that middle name came out, I knew I was in for a heap of trouble. So, people have more than one name. So it's normal, it's just the way things go. But what's happening here? We're upset. We're jealous of our brother. Let's kill him. Have you seen that story before in the Scriptures? Jacob, whose name meant the deceiver, deceived his father and took away Esau's blessing. What did Esau want to do to Jacob?
You want to kill him.
Kill him! Get rid of him! And so he was sent away to another country for safety. This goes on. And you're sitting there, that's a generational sin that we see again. Let's kill my brother. Let's kill my brother. If you go back the generation before Jacob, Isaac had a stepbrother, Ishmael. Sarai got so angry about Ishmael making fun of Isaac, she told Abraham, send him away into the desert. Now, if you are by yourself, sent into the desert with a canteen and a little bit of food, what tends to happen to you? You die. She said, kill him. Now, again, a nice, loving, close-knit family we have here. Whew. And this is the family that Jesus comes from. That, I think, is another miracle of God. He wasn't messed up. But, the rest of the family was, whew. And we can even go further into that. But think about this. Genesis 37:28. Somebody read that.
Then the Midianite traders passed by. So the brothers pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt.
Notice the parallel here. Joseph was sold as a slave for what was the traditional cost of a slave. Fast forward. Jesus. What was he sold for?
30, price of a slave.
Which at that point in time was the price of a slave. Now you start seeing some parallels in the story. Gets even better than that, folks. Somebody read Genesis 37:26.
So Judah said to his brothers, what profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood?
Who said that?
So Judah.
Judah came up with the idea, let's settle him for a slave. Let's make some money off this deal. Somebody read Matthew 26:14 and 15. Yeah, now you got to switch to a whole new book.
But we need to stay close enough to the page.
Judas.
Matthew, what was
Yeah,
that?
look at that. That's
Matthew 26:14 and 15.
that's what you should know.
Yeah, I'm sure that.
Okay.
ahead.
Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What are you willing to give me if I deliver him to you?" And they counted out to him 30 pieces of silver.
Judas? Judah? Judah is the Hebrew word for the Greek word Judas. Talk about parallels. Same name. It was through the line of Judah, the one who betrayed Joseph. It was through his line that Jesus would be born. Judah says, let's get rid of our brother. Let's sell him as a slave. Christ comes. Judas, who also was a Jew, therefore a kin of Jesus, his brother in the flesh, says, I don't like this Jewish brother. Let's get rid of him. Why did Judah and the other brothers want to get rid of Joseph? What was Joseph saying he was going to do?
They were going to bow
Why
to
did they
him.
want to get rid of Jesus? What was Jesus for?
He was supposed to be the king.
He's
and
the King
take
of
over.
Kings. He was supposed to rule over them. Notice there again the parallel. Both brothers are saying, no, we don't want you to rule over us. So let's get rid of you. And then in bold print, the most beautiful words in the Bible. Maybe even arguably the most important words in the Bible. But God. Don't you love it when you're going through the story, you're seeing all this crud happen, you're sitting there in despair, and then God steps in. Whoa, okay, things change. You're down in the dumps. You're in prison with Paul and Silas. And they're singing and praising God. And God steps in and says, huh, you think these chains can hold my people? Watch this. Earthquake, chains fall off. Doors open. Real criminals are in there. Now they're not chained. The doors are open. They could leave. And they don't. But God was holding them. He was keeping them from escaping. That's not what he opened the doors for. He opened the doors so that the jailer would accept God, accept Christ. But God. And in the life of Joseph, we have his brothers plotting against him, selling him off into slavery, and I am sure when they did that, they took the list and said, we can scratch him off. Don't have to worry about that boy in his dreams anymore. He's a goner. But God was not finished with his story. You go through the history of Israel. You go through the history of the Bible. And God steps in at the right time. I love it in Hebrews. Thousands of years after the Garden of Eden and the first promise of the Messiah, Jesus came. And in Hebrews it says, but at the very right time, he sent the Messiah. God is an on-time God. He does things when it's needed. Not before. Not afterwards. He does it on his time. And so what we see at this part in Joseph's life is but God. Remember that. Because when we go to the second and third part, especially the second part next week, we actually see that term in the scriptures, where we actually see the results of what happened in Joseph's life. And then how God changed it all. And why all this happened. You may know Romans 8:28 and 29.
I should. Oh, I should.
Lord, I know it.
It's right on the tip of my tongue. Just stick your tongue out. We'll read it.
I
For all,
if I had my olive leaf, I could do it.
That's right. That's right.
for those immeasurably more. Wait a minute. I think that's what Rockbridge always has on their prayers.
We have to try another one.
What is it, Romans 8?
Romans 8.
I know.
Well, we know.
28, 29?
Yeah.
The plans that I have for
No, that's
That's
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah.
You're coming up with some good verses, though, Missy.
Got too much stuff.
For
in
he
there.
will finish the work and cut it short in righteousness, because the Lord will make it short work upon the earth.
Excuse me. Which translation
Eight,
you
wait,
reading?
8 to 8. I'm sorry.
8, yeah, chapter 8. Thank you.
I get the right
That's right.
chapter. And we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose, for whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, and that he might be the firstborn among many brethren.
We know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, no questions, guaranteed that everything, and the word there is all things, not just all types of things, it's all things are working together for the good of them who love God, who are called according to God's purpose. What is God's purpose for each and every one of us? To be like Christ. He says, I'm using everything I bring into your life to make you more like my Son. And that's what he's doing in Joseph's life,
In our lives.
in
I
our
just
lives.
answered something for me.
Well, good. What was that?
Woo! Just last weekend, I just had a little confirmation there.
And that's the God we serve. He says, yeah, I'm going to use this for good. I'm going to change it to good. In my opinion is not worth much, but in my opinion, nothing bad ever happens to a Christian. It may feel bad. We may not understand it. But God has promised it's going to work together for our good, so it can't be bad. If God says it's good, I can't say it's bad.
Well, when we go through those rough roads in the valley,
Mm-hmm.
we look behind and we always learn something.
Jay, I think you'd bring this back up.
Just hit it.
Just hit it.
There's no password. Just tap.
Okay, wait a minute. You're not
There's a
touch screen.
train one step
No,
further.
There's no password.
I want you to hear this song, because we sit there and we forget God is leading us along. God is leading as we go. And we think, well, because God loves us, and he will lead us through the flood, through the deep water, through the fire, all through the blood. Some on the bright, beautiful mountaintops. But the thing about it, in order for him to lead us, that means he is with us. So we don't go through any of it alone. He's always there going with us. Can't you see Joseph headed down to Egypt, saying, Jehovah, you gave me this dream. I know you speak the truth. I don't know how it's going to work. But God, you are faithful. And next week we'll pick up in Egypt. How he goes through more crud, more stuff that humanly speaking is horrible. But it's all for a great purpose. And when we get to chapter 50, and when we get to chapter 50, verse 20, if you don't shout, check your pulse. God, it's amazing the way God acts in those things.